Hello, everyone. This is Ed Breniger, and welcome to the Eddie Network podcast. And my guest today is a young woman that I've just recently met here where I live, named Eleanor. And you're what, 17? Is that right?
hmm Yep.
17. Well, Eleanor, welcome to the Eddie Network podcast, and it's going to be interesting to see where our conversation goes. And
hmm
I typically ask people to tell us a little bit about who you are, and usually they say, "Well, I do this kind of work or something like that." But you're still a student, aren't you?
I am. Um, my school life has been a little crazy recently, um, because of some stuff that happened in December. So right now I'm kind of, well, first of all, I'm homeschooled. So been homeschooled all my life, and most of my siblings have been to like up till college age. Um, it's meant a lot of different things, really, because we were like, what's that like? And sometimes it's at home just reading your own textbooks, and sometimes you're at a co-op, and sometimes I have online classes. So it's kind of I've had like all the different versions of homeschool pretty much, at least as far as I know. So, um,
Do you have a
yeah,
favorite? Do you have a favorite subject?
um, probably biology. Um, but I really like writing too, like creative writing.
Hmm.
Um, and I actually do have a job, so it's just like a part-time. Um,
What do you
I
do?
work at I work at the YMCA, but they have like a kid zone, so it's pretty much just childcare, where they just come in and play, and you make sure that they don't kill each other or whatever. So,
So you're seeing from your generation, you're seeing what younger generations are like
right,
as
for the
children,
past year,
but
yeah,
as children, yeah.
yeah.
And so, do you have um, any reflection on that you would like to offer? I mean, what do you see that kind of stands out to you that is interesting?
And like the younger generation.
Yeah.
Um, what stands out? I'm not really sure. Like compared to other young
Well, how
children in
how
the
old are
past, or
how old
just
are these kids? How old are these kids that you work with?
well, there's two different zones. Like one is like um babies to 5, and then the other one's 5 to 11. But I mostly see like the youngers,
Mhm.
like the 0 to 5. Um,
Do they behave the way you expect them to?
more or less. Sometimes like yeah, I guess I don't really know how to answer that question.
Okay, okay. Well, I'm curious because I'm in a lot of settings where I'm seeing families and with kids, and in
hmm
some cases the kids are very, very well mannered.
Yeah,
Is that because they're very well managed? I don't know. And then these other
yeah,
cases, the kids are wild. And
yeah.
my question is that difference um, something in the kid himself or herself, or is it something that's a product of their family life? And I'm not sure that there's
Mm,
actually an answer, but that's what I look at.
yeah.
Yeah.
I can definitely see differences in like their relationship with their parents. Like most of them are very excited to see, and some like don't want to leave. Um, which I definitely think says something.
Yeah.
But a lot of them, I don't know. I feel like there's a lot of good relationship with their parents, but also I don't think they actually get to see them that much because I think usually they're in school and then their parents come and drop them off at the Y for several hours. And so I don't think they're really home that much,
Uh,
um, which makes me kind of sad. Um, I think that's also just because like growing up, I was always at home, and my dad was in and out working because now he works remotely, but or sort of remotely. But my mom was always home, so it's weird to think about like what if I was 5 and I just went and hung out with my age and like didn't really have any contact with elder people except for teachers or whatever, and that just feels kind of bizarre to me. Um,
I've heard that said uh, over the decades that I've been alive that that there's a kind of a strangeness to the way we educate children because we keep them all kind of captured within their age group because they're easier to manage that way. But really, what
mhm,
they need is to be able to be in a much broader spectrum of ages.
yeah.
So in these co-op groups that you're in, what would be the age span of those groups, those education groups?
The one I was in was like kindergarten to high school.
Yeah,
So it was pretty big and broad. It was mostly the most that were there were kindergarten to middle. Like there weren't very many high schoolers there. So I think yeah, I left after my 10th grade because there's just like kind of nobody around anymore. Like people were still there, but it was very small
hmm.
once like usually the high schoolers started leaving because nobody else is there. Um, but yeah, it's a pretty broad spectrum.
Uh, we homeschooled our three children, and we we were in different co-ops as you describe them. You know,
Hmm.
um, it was interesting. It was a very interesting time. This was back in the 90s, mostly when homeschooling was just really beginning to break through, break out. I mean, when we started homeschooling, we were living in West Virginia, and my oldest son, who was reading at the age of 5, I mean, he was reading real books at the age of 5,
Hmm.
um, was so far ahead of the many of the kids in his classroom that he got bored and he just asked, could he learn at home? And the school system not only thought it was good, the school system thought it was a good idea, and so it was where we started. And then when we moved to North Carolina, if we had started this about 5 years before, it was illegal to do it in North Carolina um, 35 years ago. But
Interesting.
they had passed a law, and so they had put a system in where the homeschoolers um, had to fill out some forms at the end of every year to kind of demonstrate that they had done the work, of a school. And and so we were part of three different groups. There was one that was a fairly conservative group, very kind of traditional, middle class kind of group. Then we were in a Catholic group that was primarily focused on learning Latin. So our kids learned Latin. And then there was actually a couple of conservative groups. And then there was a group of hippies, a very free, and that was a great group to be in too, because, it was kind of this diversity of interactions with people from a really wide spectrum of our community that I think was really beneficial to our kids.
Hmm.
So, and then they went to community college when they turned 16 because they had a program. The state of North Carolina had a program when a kid turned 16, they can start taking classes at community college for free.
Hmm.
And some of the friends of our kids who were homeschooled, they would do that, and a couple of them graduated with not only their high school diploma, but also an associate's degree, um, having done that for 2 years. So
Yeah.
I thought that was a great thing that the state offered to us, and it benefited my kids pretty well.
Yeah.
Have you been doing that? Have you been taking courses like
I,
that?
I haven't yet, but I'm planning to do it in the fall. Um,
Hmm.
so I'm planning to start doing that in the fall. Um, yeah, North Carolina seems like a very just homeschool hub, or at least the area that we are. It's like
Yeah.
it's pretty cool because we started in Kansas. I was born in Kansas, but I didn't really grow up there. Um, and I remember early on telling people that we were homeschooled used to be kind of like a unique thing, and now everybody's doing it. So, which may also be because of COVID and stuff, and people were just forced to do it. Um, and so now they just have been and haven't gone back or whatever. Um, it
It
is
is.
interesting how much it's grown.
Yeah, it is, and but back in the 90s, the complaint that I would receive from friends who kids went to public school and also to private school was, well, um, they were concerned about our our kids' socialization, and and I would say, well, they're in a wider mix of ages than your classes are. And he says, but then this is what I would say. I said, well, but you're not grading for socialization, are you? And therefore, you don't really have a means of determining whether your socialization or our socialization was working. So when you start scoring for that, doing some kind of evaluation, then we have something to talk about.
Yeah. Yeah, there does seem to be a myth that, or like a partial myth that homeschoolers are just like isolated and they don't know anything. Um, which to me, I feel like that's partially true, but we still have our own community. It's just more protected, so we don't know all the nasty things yet. It's just I didn't know my first curse word until I don't even know. But I've been meeting kids at the Y that are like 7 and they already know them. And I was probably 13 before I knew any. And so when they're t saying that you're isolated, I think it's more like we're sheltered from a lot of stuff. And I think that can be beneficial in some ways and then maybe harmful in others. Um, because sometimes you really do need to know what's going on, and sometimes it's hard to tell how much younger people can take or not take. Um, I think there's definitely a balance, but yeah, I don't know.
So where does digital technology fit into your schooling regimen? What are you? And I'm certain you're using a computer, but what about how do you use your smartphone? Do you use a smartphone in your?
Yes, I have a Android. Um, but we have like limitations on it.
Hmm.
So I don't have any social media except um I have a platform that I just communicate with my family, and then um I have like a thing for my work, and that's pretty much it. Um, which some of it I'm like, I would like to have this or that, but it's usually not social media. Like I want Spotify on my phone and not just my computer. But other than that, I'm pretty happy with it. Like I don't have anything on there that I really use except texting. I do text people. Um,
So you
but
so you don't feel. I'm asking. I'm making an assumption here. So you don't feel that you're missing out on something by not having all those different apps that your peers would in other situations would be using.
not really, because I feel like most of those just connect strangers and not friends, and then there's a whole bunch of mental issues that come with it.
Hmm.
Um, like I don't think I'll ever get TikTok because I don't know if that's controversial or not, but I just don't what's on there, I just don't value enough to risk scrolling or whatever. Um, because even with my computer, I do have more things, so sometimes I do like YouTube can be a problem for me sometimes. So I don't want more of that, if that makes sense. Because um I lost my train of thought.
Well, I
But
think,
maybe at some point I'll get like Facebook or Instagram or something to be a little bit more connected, but I still don't think I'll spend all my time on there because I value face-to-face interaction way more than I do
and
online stuff.
you feel like you're not lacking in that interaction by
Not really,
not
no.
having those. That's good. I mean,
Yeah.
I can understand that, and I'm sure that many people that are watching this uh, may not know anyone who could say what you just said. That you stand out
Yeah.
in a positive way of and and I would assume these are kind of the rules that your parents have set up for you and your family.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, and I commend them for because there is a lot of stuff which is rather disturbing on there, if I can use that.
Yeah.
So,
And I think it can be beneficial. It's just not enough for me to do it.
mhm.
So,
Um, you said you like to write, and
hmm.
you said that to me the other day when we talked for a few moments. Um, but before we ask you about writing, I want to find out about your reading, the things that you like to read, and
Mm.
why. What is it that I mean? I know what you're going to say, but I'd like for you to say it again to me, but also to the our audience about the things that you're reading um, that you really get something from.
Yeah. I read a lot of fantasy. Um, but I'm very particular on the quality of it. Um, even if, like I want to know how I, this is hard to say because I can tell like how much it's giving me and if it's just fun and just kind of I call it like junk reading or whatever, which is not really junk, it's just not super beneficial. Like um
Uh-huh.
but I still enjoy them. So I definitely want to enjoy them, but also acknowledge that maybe it's not super beneficial. Or like I really try to read some very thick fiction books that are just classics and good. So I love Lord of the Rings
Uh-huh.
and I grew up on Narnia. Um, um, and I only read Harry Potter recently and I thought it was good, but it was still not as beneficial as like Lord of the Rings. Um, so yeah, I like thick, usually series. I like series of books. Um,
And
like Ranges Apprentice and stuff.
uh, so you're you're not judging a book by its cover, which is an old saying, but
Hmm.
you're looking for um, a story that has what is when you look at a when you look at a book and you're looking at that story and you're measuring the book
Hmm.
according to the story that it's telling, what is it that you're looking for? I'm really curious about this.
Hmm. It's really hard to tell. I guess I'm looking at the values of the characters a lot
Uh-huh.
of the time. Um, like what they're really fighting for. Um,
Uh-huh.
and then how it's portrayed.
Yeah.
Because sometimes there can be too much of a good thing. Like I'll use Percy Jackson as an example because that's what's in my head right now. Um, that even though it's Greek mythology and it's kind of silly, there's really good values embedded in there because it's a lot of loyalty and I haven't read it in a while, so I'm trying to think of what else I find in there.
So,
Um,
if I may interrupt, when you say there's a lot of loyalty, what do you mean by that? What do you see loyalty being?
um, like sticking together with things even though they're extremely hard because there's the characters are trying not to die, but they're willing to completely sacrifice themselves for each other. Um, and that's splayed through the entire series. I'm mostly talking about the first series because I don't really remember the second one.
Yeah,
Um,
and that you're talking about Percy Jackson. Yeah.
yes, yeah.
And I see that same thing in Lord of the Rings.
There's so much sacrifice on the Rings too. Um, yeah. So even though they're very different stories, they have the same values. So yeah, I guess actually now that I'm thinking about it, the stories I really love the most are the ones with loyalty in it. Because this one's lesser known, but Ranger's Apprentice, there's also just they're always working together and trying to save each other. And it's just even though they know they're not perfect and they have their flaws, they're still willing to sacrifice themselves for others. Um,
I'm going to ask you a really deep and complicated question. So I apologize for doing this, but I'm going to ask anyway. So do you see the authors writing these stories as a way of describing what they want for society, meaning maybe it's missing in society, or is what they see in society? You know, you see the difference there?
yeah.
Because I'm asking that question because I love the Lord of the Rings too, and
Hmm.
I read it again last year, and then when the extended versions came out in the theaters a month or so ago, I went
Yeah.
I went and saw all three of them, and you know what I what I liked about it is that that there was this principle of sacrificing yourself for not the greater good, which is, can be an abstraction, but for
Hmm.
my friends and my people, you know.
Yeah.
And the thing I liked about the Lord of the Rings is that you have the Fellowship of the Ring, this collection of different characters who are not like each other at all,
Hmm.
and yet they choose to bind themselves to these two hobbits because
Yeah.
they have placed the future of the world into their hands. I mean, it's a pretty unique story that
Yeah.
doesn't I don't see it really reflected in modern society at all. Maybe you do, but I
Yeah.
keep trying to figure out where that fits. And I think that's part of the charm
Hmm.
of it is that it doesn't describe what we are, but it describes what we could be.
Hmm. I think it's a bit of a mixture. Um, because I don't think there's a lot of that, like of what you just said, um, of binding together and with people you really don't know. But at the same time, the rest of like every pretty much the entire world is fighting against them, it feels like. And even I mean, there's this whole feud between the men and the elves, and like there is so much that is not like that. And so I think it also shows a little bit like there's always going to be something, even if it's a hobbit, that is trying to do what's right. So even if there's not a lot of that, it's also just like, well, the entire world is against the little guy, and yet he's still trying to do what's right. Um, and so I think there's a bit of hope in there too,
Yeah.
that most of the world is horrible, but there's always somebody out there trying to do the right thing, whether they fail or not.
Well, I think Tolkien was really wanting to make that statement. I mean, he was writing out of his own experience of the First World War,
Hmm.
and if you understand that background, then you really see that, um, and he's kind of mapping out what can be if we choose for it to be.
Yeah.
So, so loyalty, that's a great value, and
Hmm.
it's very it is very much aligned with my core value, which is honor, to treat people with honor and to always operate in a manner where I honor the group or they honor the, even when I'm having to criticize it, but to honor is a form of loyalty. And so, yeah,
Hmm.
I totally agree with you. Um, so you have begun to write. When did you first start writing? How old were you?
Um, well, my biggest project I started when I was 13. Like I'd written a couple little sporadic things beforehand.
Hmm.
Um, but that's when I really started on the book that I finished last year. Um, so it took me 3 years to do it. It was quite the
Pretty good.
project,
I'd say
but
that's pretty good.
yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Tell us about your story. What's your book about?
okay. Well, it's funny because when we started talking, I was like, this is also kind of what my book's about.
How about
Which
that?
is loyalty.
I'm not
Um,
surprised. I'm not surprised at all.
yeah. It's about a girl about my age. I haven't really decided because it's just the first draft that's done.
Hmm.
Um, so who knows what age she'll be in a couple of years from now? I don't know. But right now she's about 16. That's it's a high fantasy, so they're on a whole different planet, and and I actually realized writing this that a lot of people don't know Greek mythology as well as I do, I guess thanks to Percy Jackson and Narnia. Um, but she's a mix of dryad and human, and dryads are like the spirits of trees. Um,
Mm.
so I have this whole background of that dryads and naiads, which is like water spirits, did used to exist, but once like once the world kind of got polluted and more human, they dispersed. Like they just left and went on their own little planets. So, um, with uh, I really need to pitch this better. I need to just get a pitch. But
Yeah, just pitch it.
um,
Pitch your book to us. Yeah.
trying. Okay. Um, so the whole background is that there was a mix between humans and dryads, but they couldn't live on the dryad planet or the human planet, so they found this whole other planet for them to put them on there and put magical barriers up and stuff so they could live there. Um, but the problem was that there is already a creature there, so like another humanoid, um, I guess aliens. I don't really like that word because it just sounds weird. I don't know, but that are called karules. So they kind of just obliterated them so their children could get on there. And they've been living there for generations or whatever. And so the book starts with these half dryad, half human. um, creatures, I guess. And they find out that all of the Karules were actually not gone. They've been hiding in secret, and they have a grudge because this was their home planet, and then they just got invaded and completely pushed out. Um, so they come back to fight the Dryad slash human creatures, which I call dromads because I don't know. Um, so it's in this point of view of this girl that gets caught up in the middle of all of that, and she gets captured by the Cruels on like one of the first raids. And she's separated from her parents, and um, long story short, she escapes her capture and decides to go out on a quest to find her father because she has found out from um, like a soldier that he was taken. So the world is like half Dryad human, and then there's this whole desert over here where the Karules live. But they didn't know the Karules were over there, but they just have like this huge hedge in between. And so they found out that her father was taken to the other side. So she goes off to find her father. Um, and that's the basis of the story. There's a lot of parallels with I have this other character that also has a father that's been like um how do I describe it? Very, very traumatized to the point where he's kind of evil and she gives up on him. But Katrina, which is the main character, is so committed to finding her father, even though he's across like into this completely desert area. She's still going after him. And so it's kind of loyalty again. Um, but one of the other core values is that the main character is very judgmental and kind of like judges a book by its cover. Um, and this other father figure is like seems evil and horrible, and he there's no way he can return. But the question is, can he redeem himself? Um, so
Wow.
that's the premise.
That's a very sophisticated story. I,
Thank
I'm
you.
I'm very impressed. Um, eh, because you have these characters having multiple sides to them.
Hmm.
That's and yeah, it's I can't wait to read it. I really do want to read it, even in first draft, because it
Yeah.
sounds um, like the thought that came to me as you were describing it is that this is not unlike John Carter from Mars by Jules Verne. You know that story?
I've heard of it, but I haven't read it.
Yeah. Well, he gets projected to Mars, and he enters into this world of different beings and different species of
Hmm.
whatever,
Yeah.
and he has skills that he doesn't have on. He has abilities he doesn't have on Earth, and it's a great story. It kind of comes out of this is what my assumption. There's been this kind of idea in America about discovery and of the openness and that there's places to go. There's the frontier that we go to find something new, and that's a very American sort of idea. And a lot of the science fiction that was written, you know, 80, 100 years ago had this kind of sense of we're going to new places. It's like the whole um, kind of mythology around going to the moon. now going to Mars, is all about, going to new lands and finding new places and that sort of thing. And you're describing this, and it's so I think it has great potential as a
Mhm.
story that would capture people's um, interest.
Yeah, that's cool.
No, sounds great. How did you
Mhm.
come up with this? What were the things that kind of sparked the? I mean, when I say it's a sophisticated story, I'm being very serious. I mean, I'm working on my first novel, and it's not at your level at all. I mean, it's I'm having to teach myself to write all over again. But you
Yeah.
you obviously have a talent for it. I mean, just conceptually of what you've created there is, I've not read it, but what you just described to us is really sophisticated. So,
Hmm.
where did this come from in you?
Uh, I really don't know the first source because I took like a two-page story that I wrote when I was 8 or something and turned it into this one, and I really don't know how I did.
What's your
It's just that
imagination?
what?
It's your imagination.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, but it was really just step by step as I figured out um what was gonna happen next because like it was just a bunch of random, I mean it felt random, I'm sure it wasn't. But like just I don't know. I remember brainstorming with one of my sisters and she was like, "Well, your character has to be," because a lot of my siblings are also writers. Um at least in some way or another. But she was talking about how, well, your main character needs to be unique and stuff. So like she can't just have, I mean, she could have just brown hair and brown eyes, but what makes her unique? And this whole thing up came, I think we were outside, and she was just jokingly said, "What if her skin was green?" And that somehow turned in she's half dryad, half human. So it's just very little things that can make like a huge part of the plot. Um, but a lot of what helped me too is brainstorming with my siblings and I'm gonna have to pitch this a little bit because I don't feel like I can without without doing
Yeah,
this.
you do that.
But
Yeah.
there, there's a curriculum called One Year Adventure Novel that's it's in Kansas or the creator's in Kansas and um he started it when I was born actually. And my eldest sister has been working for them since she was like 16. So we've been very immersed in this curriculum for a long time. And I had a very strong community of other writers, and I really don't think I would have even wanted to write if I didn't grow up in that in that curriculum and that community. So just from a very young age, I was immersed in this stuff, and so I just I saw it and went, I want to do that. Even though I didn't really even have a story at the beginning, but as soon as kind of part of the reason I started at 13 was that that's when you could really start the curriculum. Like that's kind of when you were supposed to start it. And so I think like the day after my birthday or something, I pulled it out. It was just, I'm gonna do this now. This is what I'm doing. So it's crazy to think about because I've been wanting to do it for years and then I just decided to do it. And now I'm 3/4 years later and I finished a book. Like I kind of thought it was just gonna be a hobby and it is, but it's a way bigger hobby than I was expecting. Because it's funny, I was talking to one of my sisters the other day about when I finished this book, I thought I was gonna go, okay, that's it. That was fun. I'm gonna stop writing now.
Yeah, I
And
know.
then I got and then I got another story idea. I was like, oh no, now I have to write another one. So yeah, even though it was extremely hard, it took me 3 years. I had so many falls and so many frustrations. I want to do it again. So I don't, it's amazing to think about. Um,
It is. That's exactly my experience. The hardship
yeah,
of it, the suffering of it is why it's meaningful.
yeah,
Um, you're a very fortunate person, and you've been surrounded by people that not only I suspect love you, but also
hmm
nurture all these skills or all these potentials that you have,
yeah,
and you're very fortunate. And you've been given a gift, and I celebrate that.
yeah.
So, can't wait to see your book. Do you need an agent?
What?
Do you need
Uh,
an agent?
I mean, I don't have one, so
All right,
I guess
I'll
so.
I'll introduce you to mine because and she
Okay.
may not be your agent, but she'll certainly know who to
Yeah.
send you to. But yeah, I think you. I mean, I didn't expect this when we met the other day that you would have this level of sophistication in not only in your thinking but in your writing, and that's
Yeah.
it's very cool. So, you've got what, another year and a half of high school before you're finished,
Um,
or or whenever you decide you're finished.
Probably about two. It would have been one by this time, but like I said, my school life has been kind of crazy recently. So, um,
You got some more things to
so
do,
yeah, I got
and you're
some
not in a hurry.
stuff I need to do. No, I'm really trying to not be because I think last year a lot of my issue was that I was running out of time and I need to do all this now, and that just was really overwhelming. And so it set me back more than it helped. So now I'm just trying to be like really, really trusting in God and also just things are gonna go where they're gonna go. And it's not the end of the world if I have to take a break in high school or whatever, which is what I'm doing right now. Um,
And you can do that,
so,
and you can do it.
yes, yeah, I have time. It's not like I'm gonna die tomorrow. I mean, maybe I will, I don't know. But
I don't
it's
think you will.
probably not very likely that I'm gonna die tomorrow. So
Well, I
yeah.
appreciate who you are and what you have been able to accomplish. Um, Let me ask you one more question. This is kind of what I mentioned this early on before we started recording. Um, can you give us some kind of perspective on how you look at the world through the lens of being a teenager and and how the various generations are interacting with one another in the world? Do you have a sense of how that is working or not working, or what you what your experience is?
Mm. Um,
Is that question clear?
I think so. I could
Well,
rephrase it, make sure I.
what I see is that there's a lot of conflict between generations,
Mm-hmm.
and my generation looks at your generation and so all they're doing is scrolling all the time, and they're not working hard, and et cetera. But in reality, what I tell them is that, well, they're living in the world that you created. So why didn't you create
Yeah.
a world that would equip them better for life?
Mm-hmm.
And of course they don't have any answers to that because they don't think of it in those terms. They just think
Yeah.
we do our thing and they do their thing, and there's not much um, connection between the generations.
Yeah.
And then you add the Gen Xers and the millennials. What do you consider? Consider yourself a Gen Z?
Um, Yeah, I thought I was, but it's funny because a couple nights ago we looked it up and
Are you Gen
apparently
Alpha now? Are you actually Gen
I
Alpha?
think I'm in between like Gen Z
You're
and
on
Gen
that
Alpha.
cusp.
I'm
Yeah.
not, yeah, for a long time I thought I was Gen Z, so I don't really know anymore. Maybe I'm Gen Alpha.
You're
One of
the
those.
you're the young end of Gen Z. Let's say that.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
so the oldest end of Gen Z is actually the young end of millennials.
Mm, okay.
So I think there's
Yeah.
that kind of, there's this wovenness anyway. Yeah. But
Yeah.
what I see is that each generation has sort of a bias towards its own, and in some respects is giving excuses for why they're not more successful or whatever it is, and so
hmm
they blame the other generations for that. I'm just curious as to,
Yeah.
does this enter into your thinking at all? Is this something that matters to you, or is it? Let me my last qualification of this question, sorry, is
You're
that
good.
you have grown up in an environment where that generational differences didn't really matter because you were in a very multi-generational environment as a homeschooler, and therefore you've grown up with something totally different than many of us have experienced.
hmm Yeah, and I don't think I've mentioned this either, but I also my family is just spanning like it's very broad in the generations too because I have seven older siblings. So
Well,
like I
how old
think
is
my
your
eldest
oldest
sister's
sibling? How old is your oldest sibling?
um she's 32. She'll be
Uh-huh.
33 this year.
It's almost
So
twice your age.
yeah,
Almost, yeah.
we're about 15 years apart.
Yeah.
So I we so I do have a pretty broad um interaction with people. Um but I definitely see the gap. Because I think there's a lot of condescending stuff on both sides. Because there's the part that you mentioned where like they're just scrolling all the time. But then with us, there seems to be this weird thing about older people aren't wise anymore. Now they're just stupid, which doesn't make any
Ooh, I
sense.
like that.
Like they've lived longer, so they have more experience. But I think maybe because of they're just scrolling all the time, they're not seeing the full picture. So then we perceive them as dumb or something, which I don't know. But yeah, there just seem to be like a myth on both sides of they're just scrolling all the time and then they're stupid for thinking that, even though
Yeah.
because I do see there's definitely a social media problem. What what bothers me is that there's some things about how this younger generation is worse than others in the past, and I don't believe that at all. Because even though the other people in the past didn't have social media, they had really bad other problems. So there's the comparison of this one's the worst yet, or this one's the stupidest yet, or whatever. I just don't think it's true because, as I mean, just in America, we've had very bad history, um, like with racism or like there's always been problems. So trying to one up each other of which one's the worst one, I think is just kind of dumb. Like why are we trying to do this? Um, and another thing on that too is have you heard of the book Do Hard Things?
Yeah.
It's like,
Hmm.
yeah, that they talk so much about low expectations and their effect. So when older generations are looking down on younger generations, they're lowering the bar of like if they're just scrolling all the time, then you just have to not scroll and then suddenly you're better than everybody. And, and that's just not
It doesn't work that way.
that's not true. But it's because the expectations are so low, if you just act like a normal human being, then you can exceed them. Like, um, I'm not saying
I
people that
understand.
scroll are not normal human beings. I just mean you don't have to try very hard to be like impressive to other people, which just means like I definitely see myself like, well, if I just don't do drugs and don't drink, then I'm already like above 50%. Like I don't know what the percentages are, but it's really hard to push yourself when no one else is really. Um,
Hmm. Yes.
and it can just be frustrating when they put everybody in a box and you're not in that box. And somehow it's impressive, but you're not, you also don't feel that impressive because you know in yourself that you could be doing way more than you are.
Your standards are higher than the world standards.
Yes. Um,
Yes.
yeah. Yeah.
Yes. I understand that very well. And if it's easy, I don't want to do it. If it's hard, I want to do it. Like starting at the age of 72 to write a novel, your first novel. That's not easy because you're all this all these behaviors that you've been doing for now into eight decades
Hmm.
is a handicap to thinking clearly and freshly and learning how to tell a story over 100,000 words.
Yeah. And
It's it's very hard. It's very
yeah,
hard. And you have to be extraordinarily self-critical. And because, I mean, this is my experience is that um, you this is my experience. So I've written 16 chapters of this book. And as I've gone back and read through it, it says, oh, this is really not good. And I thought it was so great.
like when you're writing it and then you go back and read it, like, oh my
Oh,
goodness,
oh, this is painful.
what am I saying? Yeah.
And it's because the the enjoyment of writing it is not the same thing as writing something that other people will find enjoyable.
Hmm.
Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
Yeah.
So anybody that writes, I mean, I interviewed a guy named Jeff Kerr from Austin, Texas, and he's a novelist, and he writes crime novels. He's got a character that he's writing, and he's just now published his fifth book of this character.
Mhm.
And he told me in our podcast that he can write two books a year. And I'm thinking, how in the world can you do that?
I could not do that.
I can't do that either. And 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 so yeah, it's the fact that you've written something and you finished it was is pretty great.
Yeah.
So
It's
well,
funny too, though, with the self-criticism because like the people I've shared it with are very high praising it. I mean, like they're also maybe you should change this or whatever. But I, again, low expectations. Um, because I don't think it's that good. But like I think the story's good, but I think what I've written just doesn't portray it like I want it to.
it's not like it's in
And
your head.
yeah, and it makes me curious if any writer ever is ever satisfied with what with, like the what they produce. Like it could always be better. So,
Well, the first book I wrote was a leadership book called Circle of Impact, and I turned the
mhm.
manuscript in on the last day of January 2018. And then the book was published in September, and between January and September, it went through six edits. I still find mistakes in the book when I read through it. So
Yeah.
I think that there's another saying that a book is never finished, it's only abandoned.
Oh, that hurts.
You know, am I right about that?
Yes. And that's why it's so painful because it's so
Yeah.
true. Oh,
It
oh.
is. It is. Well, I'm grateful for you to be here, and it's been a delight. And I'm glad to know you. And I want to read your book, even if it's not perfect. And
Okay.
I will share what I've written with you. And as I tell people that I do, I want you to be really critical. I want you to do not spare my feelings
Mhm.
because I need to know what works and what doesn't. And I'm sure you
Yeah.
feel that same way.
Yeah.
So I
It's hard to
thank
find
you.
people that will be critical, so
Yeah. So I thank you for being with us today.
this was
Anything
really
else you'd
cool.
like to say?
Thank you.
Anything else you'd like to say?
Um, Not at the top of my head, no.
Well, okay, I ask this a lot of times with my guests. Let me ask you one more question.
Okay.
Do you have hope for the future?
Yeah.
And where do
I
you find
mean,
that? Where do you find that hope? What's the basis of that hope?
um, I'm just gonna go with the simplest answer that's in my head. Jesus.
Well, say that. That's
Yeah. Did you hear me, or do I say it again?
Say it again.
Jesus.
Okay.
I feel like there's no better answer because um I mean we're gonna keep being corrupt and we're gonna keep trying. But I think like the more complicated answer is that we still all have a moral compass no matter how much we try to not have one. So I just don't think there's really much we can make worse, if that makes sense. Like we're gonna keep having problems. We're gonna fix old ones and then we're gonna have new ones. Um, but the ultimate answer is that just like there's no way we can fix ourselves. So
And so Jesus is the answer then.
yeah.
That's the way we do that. Okay. All right. Oh, I don't disagree with you. So, well, I do thank you for being with us, and I wish you well on all the stuff that you have before you, and um, the search for what it is you'll ultimately do, but even more so, may you find friends who you can share loyalty with one another. Because I know that that's going to be one way we deal with the hardship of the future is finding those loyal friends that
Yeah.
we bond together and we stay together because we need each other.
Yeah. Very true.
And to all of you who are watching, I'm glad you were here. I hope you appreciate Eleanor as a young woman who has something to say and has already accomplished some things and and I think what I need to say to you is that whatever age you are means nothing. It's only what you seek to achieve that matters at this point, whether you're 17 or 72 or 46, whatever age you are, if you were to think in terms of what is it that I can achieve, what is my impact, then I think you will find that some of the things that we've talked about today will matter to you even more. And I wish that for you so that the world we live in can be a better world. So we'll see you next time here on the Eddie Network podcast, and I thank you for watching. Bye bye.